UFC 311 is this weekend, and we're all definitely excited. But before we begin, let me just express the sadness that Goes and I, the panel as well, but Goes and I are from Southern California, and after seeing some of these videos and pictures of the devastation of Southern California, man, it really hurts. We're from Orange County, which is about 45 minutes away from these fires, and this has affected some of our families, friends, colleagues, listeners, and honestly, our memories will be the only things that we have to hold on to from some of these historical places that have been decimated, museums and national parks and other places, beaches. God bless the families that have lost their lives, their homes, or both. uh, Even those that had that call, right, where they're telling you might have to evacuate. Imagine just even going through that and having a certain amount of time to get your most valuable stuff, and then the rest is basically, it could be lost, right? And all you'll have is insurance. Strength to the first responders who have been working nonstop for about a week now, right? The firefighters, of course, but not just them. There's others that we can list: the doctors, the nurses, who have been, helping people on the field, in the hospitals, the helicopter and airplane pilots that are, dropping the retardant or water or whatever. I see airplanes now in the ocean scooping water up. Um, Other personnel from the city and county, right, that are organizing and already rebuilding where some of the fires have been contained. Strength to all them. God bless them. It's going to take years to rebuild, but as we've seen in other cities here in the United States, around the world, it can happen. It's a tragedy, but we will be back from this. Um, I know that one thing that's going to happen in the chat room is y'all are going to go down the political route. It's a free country. You can choose to do whatever you want, right? But let me just tell you, spend more time on actually listening and seeing what you can do to help if that's what you want to do. And if you're just going to sit on the sidelines, that's fine. But my opinion, I think that the critical thinking people, right, that really want to talk about this, what's happening and what you can do to help, even if it's just sharing, maybe you don't have the resources, sharing or whatever, goes a lot further than the point fingers and the divide even further. That's my personal opinion, not MMA Junkies, not USA Today or anything. That's on me. That's my thoughts. But guys, let's start off before we discuss the card. Cancellations, moving, it's an option. The Rams are playing in Arizona tonight, not in LA versus the Vikings, but that's outdoors, not indoors. But it's a week-long thing where fighters are going to possibly be outdoors, and near breathing this air. The Inglewood Forum, or sorry, it's called the Intuit Dome, is only about 15 minutes away from where these fires are. Goes and I, we grew up 45 minutes away from where these fires are. And trust me, when you've been around smoke like that, it's not good. Danny, what would you have done in regards to this?
Yeah, first of all, George, great words there to sort of set this up. Yeah, it's a complete tragedy, and I hope that any of our SBC listeners and MMA Junkie listeners who live in LA, they're all safe and they're good. And I feel for you guys. It does feel a little bit weird that the UFC is going on with this event. This is a terrible tragedy, and not only are they going on with it, but also, as you mentioned, like, we got to look into like the air quality. What's that like? How are these fighters? Can these fighters be affected by it? Can they have any underlying conditions like asthma and other things that could make this a lot worse and then really hinder their performance? I don't know. So it's definitely a bit weird, but we've seen the UFC try to continue events through the pandemic with an unknown virus. Not to get all political, we now are kind of past that, but at the time we didn't know what the hell was going on. They were still trying to put on fights. So it doesn't surprise me that this event is going on, but it does feel a little bit weird. At the same time, you can make the argument, well, people that had to evacuate or that are in the area and this is all they can think about, maybe this could be a distraction. And if things are done safely, like maybe this is something good that sort of takes their mind off the whole thing and can kind of bring some sense of normalcy if that's even a thing. But yeah, I gotta admit, like, it is a little bit strange. I'm a little bit, obviously, being in the on the East Coast, a little bit more disconnected from that than you guys. So I think maybe like Ghost would have maybe like a better analysis of it. But yeah, I gotta admit, it does feel a little bit weird that they're continuing this event.
Goes, what would you do? I think a cancellation is probably not what I'm in favor of, but maybe moving the location. And I heard T-Mobile is available, and there's a lot of arenas in California alone. Maybe just to kind of get it out of that. It's kind of close to that epicenter. It's really close.
Yeah, I would probably look into moving it. I mean, SoFi Stadium, where the Rams play, is only like 10 or 15 minutes away from where these fights are supposed to take place, right? So if they're going to move the Rams to Arizona, I think we're at the point, man, where it probably makes the most sense. That air quality is a very big deal. If you ever hear people talk about when they fight in Mexico City, a lot of people bring up altitude, but a lot of the fighters talk about air quality and how that took a lot of time to kind of adjust to the pollution there. It can really weigh on a fighter. So that and everything just going on, I think it just makes more sense. You have your home base here in Vegas. I'm sure you could figure it out. I would probably look to doing something like that.
Mm-hmm. Danton, what are your thoughts?
I just wish John Jones was on this card, because that would be the only way we would know whether or not a card's getting moved. We would ask the great John Jones what he would like. Because for as much as people want to like pretend that California is somehow like the good commission because it has Andy Foster who fought, let me remind you, they still shamelessly took slap and got strong armed by the UFC. I was in the conference meetings where Andy Foster was really pejoratively and disrespectfully speaking to the Japanese commission when talking about their their version of their unified rules, so to speak, and trying to work with these commissions. So yeah, I don't take that stuff. And you guys are saying great stuff about location. That even me being a Las Vegan, I'm not familiar with California as much as obviously Georgian goes here on the panel. But I will say you guys are all saying one word that doesn't really track. It attracts because you guys are smart. You guys are human beings. You guys have common sense. You guys are decent. But you guys are using the word safety as if that's a thing that the commissions care about, which is a big mistake. Again, I know. Fighter safety and the well-being of fighters. I know that's what they're supposed to be there for. But as you guys can tell from my opinions on this show, or if you just, open your eyes and see the sport for itself, they don't give a shit about fighter safety. They will move a card from California to Vegas on a John Jones whim, or vice versa, I should say, from Vegas to California. But again, that's money. That's superstar. That's priority, right? Like, we're not really talking about what we're talking about are things like actual like public health and safety stuff that clearly the UFC has proven recently and time again they don't really care too much about. And these athletic commissions, despite it being their job, they don't give a shit either. So will I be surprised if nothing gets done as long as they can make their buck? No, not at all, folks, and neither should you.
All right. For those that are kind of questioning what we're saying here, let me just tell you, in the past, and I'm sure the UFC will change at least this, but they can be heartless at times. They've had weigh-ins at the Santa Monica Pier, which is like 5 minutes away from where these fighters are, maybe 10 minutes. They've had outdoor weigh-ins at the Honda Center before. I remember it was like UFC 59 or 60. It was a long time ago. So they have featured this because it's Southern California and the palm trees, right? I've seen fighters running outside hotels. That's what they want to do to shed that weight. Some do it in saunas or whatever. You have to go outside for some stuff. And again, you're exposed to smoke. So are your fans. So is your company. So that's all we're saying, because it really, really is pretty close. But if the fight goes on, we're obviously going to cover it. We're going to do our jobs. And, there are some good fights. But as of right now, we have not heard an announcement that they're not going to have it at the Intuit Dome. It looks like that's what they want to do. I think Joseph Boza put a quote from Dana. I don't want to say it without confirming that that's what he said. No disrespect to Joseph, who's in here every week. But it does sound like maybe Dana's taking the route of, hey, look, maybe this can take the minds off people, and maybe we can pay an homage to first responders. Maybe there'll be special invites to some of the first responders, which is something that a lot of professional teams did here when we had the tragedy of the shooting here in Las Vegas. Getting back to, the fight card itself, excitement level, putting the fighters aside, what is it? I mean, this 2 title fights and a couple fights that have implications for future title fights. Danny, excited about that aspect of it? Is it to your taste how stacked this card is, in at least in my opinion. Dental?
For me, yeah, I think it's really stacked. You know, you got people flying in from Russia, right, just for
sorry,
the main events.
Okay.
What's up, guys?
Sorry.
Yep, no worries. Yeah, you got people flying in from Russia for the main events on these. You know, it's kind of an international heavy card quietly as well, despite being domestic. And you've got some solid matchups throughout. I would say it's probably decent strength wise from the pay per views we've been getting post pandemic, but I wouldn't say it's a weak one by any stretch. So, for what that's worth, even my cynical butt can give this card some credit, just judging it in a vacuum.
Danny, you like the card? You excited?
I love it. I think it's a great card, and I think this is really for the hardcores. Like, it might not have like the casual aspect of it, but like if you look at the fights, man, you got some bangers on here. You got a lot of fights that make sense, which I like. Yeah, I give this card a thumbs up. Very, very good.
All right, and Goes, I imagine you feel the same as the guys. If not, you can tell me so. But let's just get straight into Makhachev. Is he kind of en route to being a 155 GOAT? He's possibly in line to have a fourth title defense, which would distinguish him from BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson, and his coach, friend, and mentor, Habib Nurmagomedov.
No, I think he's on route to doing it. I mean, the stats are going to carry him. He's going to be in the sport for a while. That's what I think kind of hurt Khabib, was we felt like he could have gone a little bit more and maybe not been in this situation now, right? For him, it was for the longest time not having a loss, right? He just took one to Frontier Airlines, so that no longer exists. But the thing is that I kind of do is I think of them in their prime and what would I do if I matched them up. And for the longest time, I still felt like Khabib would win that fight. It's getting closer and closer to not feeling that way. We'll have to see. I think this is a really good challenge this weekend. I think it's going to be a really good fight. It's going to say a lot to answer your question, George.
I like that Dustin Poirier kind of made Islam dig deep, showed that he was becoming immortal, but it showed him that he can be mortal. And we'll see if his teammate, Arman Tsarukyan, can expose some of that. What's your prediction, Danny, for Makhachev and Tsarukyan? No, you know what, Danny, your thoughts. And Dan, can he become? Is he close to becoming the GOAT at lightweight? Danny.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we need to stop sort of what would be the word, sort of man, I'm looking for a specific word that I cannot pinpoint right now, but we got to stop sort of glorifying BJ Penn just because, you know, it was BJ Penn, one of the coolest fighters to ever walk this earth. He certainly had a lot of success, but his lightweight record, if you really go look at it and try to romanticize and like put aside as a romanticization of it, it's really not that great. I really do think that there is an argument for Islam Makhachev here. Look at the guys that he's fought, like Arman Tsarukyan, that's a tough-ass title defense. Charles Oliveira, Volkanovski twice, at the time considered the pound-for-pound best, and it looks like he's not going to stop. So if he can rack up like one or more 2 title defenses after this, and by the way, I'll give you my early pick. I'm going with Makhachev. Dude, I think he's got it unlocked for the best lightweight ever and the greatest lightweight of all time.
Danny, real quick, as an OG, let me tell you something, man. I hear you. BJ Penn may not have the records that some of these guys have, but I think the reason we do glamorize him is he also became a welterweight champ and made it look easy that night.
But that's welterweight. We're talking about greatest lightweight.
No, I know.
It doesn't matter what you do at 170. What you do at 155.
It's all attached to BJ Penn. And here's another thing. It almost looked like he never even fought to 50% of his actual ability. Anyway, but Dan, what do you think, man?
I gotta correct you here. I gotta stick up. You can't just judge it off of record. And I will argue, I'll make the argument without leaving out the welterweight stuff. But in that case, can we shut the fuck up about Khabib, what he would have done at welterweight, or what Islam might do? Because I hear more about that talk, and none of that ever happened. It's because no matter what the record, no matter how bad BJ Penn has made himself look in and out of the octagon, by the way, you can't change the fact that if we're talking about a most courageous fighter, he was the most courageous. You look at Khabib's playbook, look at what Khabib was doing. Islam learned from Khabib. First of all, by the way, I think Islam is great, and I think he does have a chance. So in a way, I'm kind of agreeing with Danny. I just don't agree with any of the things he said before he got to his point, where I feel like everybody has been, and Danny, you can have your opinion, that's fine. But honestly, if we're looking at the general pop, most people have not glorified Penn. Most people have, for the last, not even recently, for like the last 10 years, have not given that guy his proper credit. And if anything, they've overhyped guys who I love like Benson, guys who I love like Edgar, guys who you can't deny like Khabib. I feel like those three have been overinflated. Whereas Islam has a better argument over those three, which again kind of has me ending up in the same direction as Danny, but I do got to argue again, it's legacy. Guys, you can't do the unfair thing and compare Pantoja's resume to Demetrius Johnson's or Demetrius Johnson's to John. These are different weight classes, different eras, or even if it's the same weight class like we're talking about, it's a completely different era. And those guys were good at the time. Joe Stevenson, these guys were good at the time, right? Diego Sanchez, guys. Diego Sanchez, you think about his terrible record. Dude, he was undefeated. He only lost to John Fitch and fucking Josh Koscheck up a division when he was on staff and sick. And those were still split decision losses. It was that BJ Penn fight, one of the best performances ever, that the guy who was considered the best, Anderson Silva, was like, no, I am not the best. When everybody is saying GSP or Anderson, what were those guys saying? They were saying that BJ was the best. What were the top commentators saying from like Boss Root and all these other guys covering this? They were saying that BJ was the best. BJ did the moves from, the leg wrap thing that Khabib does to the back takes to all these things, wrestling, winning titles for AKA, all that shit Khabib did. BJ did it first. Oh, wanting to go and do boxing matches? Okay. Now maybe you can reverse to the welterweight thing and say, well, BJ never boxed like Conor. Well, he was the one doing it first. Back when he beat Hughes, he was joking about fighting Tim Sylvia, and Dana White saying, I'm having to distract this guy by having talks with Floyd Mayweather boxing matches just to keep his hopes alive. BJ was doing it before everybody. The lightweight division wasn't even a division. It was built by guys like Penn. Khabib and Islam wouldn't even have had that division if it wasn't for guys like Penn. Because of all the divisions that have tried and failed, even the flyweight, as much as they give crap for flyweight, no division has ever been under more scrutiny than the lightweight division, which failed 3 times until BJ Penn was the one to pick it up. And around that time, what else happened? Coincidentally, the golden era. BJ Penn, even as not one of the top earners next to Brock Lesnar, was averaging we want to talk numbers? 400K averages pay-per-view before Twitter, before social media, killing the averages of champions now with the machine that the UFC has. When I talk about things are crappier now in ways than they were, there are numbers and facts supporting this. And you go and look at guys like BJ Penn's career, whom, by the way, was getting guys like The Rock coming backstage in 2008, was getting Jason Statham to come at shows. Who's coming in celebrities now? With all the celebrities, UFC pays celebrities now. And even with them paying and their access, you're still not in their IMG. You're still not saying people go to the camera, go, Islam Makhachev to the camera like Jason Statham was to BJ Penn. BJ captured the imaginations. Put some respect on his name. He is a lightweight GOAT. That's what legacy is about. Boom.
Danny, I'll give you 30 seconds, or you just want to let
No argument.
Okay, all right.
I want no smoke from Dan Tom this morning. Pass on that, homie. Pass. I'm good.
All right. Hey, real quick, does Makhachev hang on to his title, guys? Real quick, over Arman Tsarukyan, or does Arman Tsarukyan get him in the rematch, kind of like what Dern did? Goes?
I think he's going to give him hell, but I think Makhachev holds on.
Yeah, I think so too, Danny.
Makhachev.
Dan?
Makhachev.
All right. In the co-main event, Merab Dvalishvili, do you guys agree with him? Did Nurmi get a quick road there to the title? Remember, he had to go through like 10 fights to get there, and I think he's kind of has some feelings towards this. But what are your thoughts here, Danny?
I do think he's deserving. You can make the case for Peter Yan and others, but look, he beat number 2. That was a main event. Figueiredo lost. This is the fight to make. I understand how Dvalishvili feels because he had to go to the end of the world and back to get his title shot. And it seems if you're a Nurmagomedov, you kind of do get an easier path. But we know the sport, it ain't fair, and this is the guy, and he's undefeated. And there's no question that he is the best contender right now to be fighting for the belt.
All right. And Goes, I got to pivot to you because we're going to end on time today. We have some other responsibilities amongst the team. Jamal Hill, does he get a title shot with a win over Yuri Prochazka?
I don't think so. Even if it's a stamp,
Ooh.
I mean, I don't think it'll happen, man.
Meaning Ankalaev first, but can Hill get the winner of Ankalaev and Pereira is what I meant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's possible, but he's got to come out and he's got to make a statement, and what he says on the mic matters a lot.
Dan Tom Moicano, can he get a title shot? He's on 6 straight. He's got a veteran in Beneil Dariush, and all the other veterans have kind of taken these losses to Makhachev. So can he be that young blood that might get Makhachev excited for yet another title defense should he win?
I like Moicano here, and I'm bummed to see that Jamal Hill's no longer an underdog because I actually liked him.
Okay. And guys, keep an eye on Peyton Talbot. This guy seems to be one of those guys that's rising, and he's an athlete, comes from extreme sports, played a little bit of football or whatever, but he seems to see the game in slow motion. I really, really like that about him. It's a pretty stacked card.